If you're MAGA, though, you're probably tired of winning, right? Whether it's the 2020 election or all the wokeness in the government, right? We know that Trump supporters, we continue to be vindicated by the new administration's transparency, but it goes so much deeper. So here to take us down the rabbit hole is Mike Howell. He's the president of Oversight Project. So Mike, thanks for being with us once again. Love having you on the show. So let's get into this because we know that Kash Patel revealed that the FBI had confiscated some fake IDs from Chinese nationals who were trying to obtain mail-in ballots. Sounds pretty fishy to me. So what is Oversight Project doing to ensure that there's going to be real accountability for this cover-up?
Yeah, so this is a massive story, but it's not altogether new. There were some reports by CBP back in 2020 that they discovered this stuff. And so what Kash ultimately disclosed to Congress was that the FBI was aware too and tracking it. Now, what really raised our hackles was two things. One, okay, it looks like a pretty big crime, so that's what the FBI should be investigating. So why'd they just refer it over to Congress, the legislative branch? So we're trying to square that one. We want to actually see accountability, and the guys with the guns and badges should do something about it instead of just telling, good old Chuck Grassley, with all due respect to him. But the second issue that we're zeroing in on, and the guys are in the lab right now trying to beat up the facts and legal arguments here, but at the highest level, the FBI and others during the Christopher Wray years told the Congress that there was no evidence of mail-in ballot fraud. And there's also intelligence community products that basically said the same thing. And so what I see happening is a lie from the government, and that's criminal when it is to Congress. And so we're pouring through statements from Wray and others and the various products that went to Capitol Hill that did not disclose this and instead said the exact opposite, that there was nothing to worry about. This was a huge thing of public concern. And it seems to me that the FBI, to no one's surprise, wouldn't do anything that could even tend to confirm the legitimate suspicions of President Trump and the rest of the country that knew it was a bogus election the whole time through.
Yeah, Mike, this really is a bombshell story, and it's very sad that not more people aren't talking about it. It's great that Kash Patel pointed this out. I just want to go through some quotes here from, to reveal the cover-up. The intelligence community's then analytic ombudsman, Barry Zuloff, said that China analysts appear hesitant to assess Chinese actions as undue influence or interference. These analysts appeared reluctant to have their analysis on China brought forward because they tended to disagree with the Trump administration's policies. Now, as you also know, in 2021, then DNI and corrupt CI Director John Ratcliffe directed the attention of senators on the Select Committee, right, on intelligence to look at this and see that these people were pressured, the analysts were pressured to withdraw their support from alternative viewpoints on China in an attempt to suppress it. So it's also already out there that there was a cover-up. Ratcliffe, now in charge of the CIA, acknowledges much back then. It was pointed out back then by the analyst ombudsman that this is being suppressed. Can you? I mean, I don't even know where to start with this. But first, okay, what exactly was suppressed? Lay into it with the details of what was found. What was China trying to do?
Yeah, in this specific instance, and there's obviously a much larger pattern here, but in this specific instance, it was related to the production of, I think, 20,000 fake IDs that were scannable. When you go to the grocery store and you may get a six-pack, and if you have a young face like me, they still want to see your ID, and they scan your ID, the same kind of mechanism for voting. And so we're trying to figure out if they were used for voting, but certainly with that kind of functionality, they were created to be used for voting. They're capable of being scanned IDs at the voting places. And so that's a massive, major concern. But the larger kind of problem here, as that piece you referenced notes, is a pattern and practice of the intelligence community over time, a sustained period of time, to ignore anything that countered the CCP, general narrative. Keep in mind, go back to 2020, COVID era. They were covering up the origins of COVID. The United States government and intelligence community, they were doing anything they could to debunk that. Also, they had the Bidens on the payroll. The first family, or to be, was on the payroll of the CCP, just like they were for Ukrainian oligarchs through Burisma. And so just ask yourself, had it been Russia that got caught doing this, would you have known about it, and would the government have taken extreme action? Of course they would have. We saw that, play out every time they found a Facebook group or a meme. They pulled the fire alarm and said Russia interference and collusions. But the intelligence community never does that with China. They frankly don't take it too seriously. It's the biggest foreign interference in this country is from China, and then now it's ranked Mexico number two. But this is kind of why China's been eating our lunch. They hit us from all different directions, and they know they basically have a sleeping U.S. intelligence apparatus that doesn't want to deal with them.
So let's look at this story, right? Because if all these IDs, all these fake IDs were used to vote, well, then you clearly have election interference. We have failures on the part of the intel community. That's concerning in and of itself. But I look at this, and it's something that you said from the very top is, yeah, they knew about it at the time. They didn't tell us about it, though, until very recently. So I want to ask you, what is the most concerning part of this story with that in mind, right? Like that we knew behind the scenes that this was going on, but nobody wanted to tell us until a guy named Kash Patel took over at the FBI.
Yeah, that's right. And now it's up to him to investigate and hold these people accountable and refer them over to DOJ for prosecution. But what it tells us is that the intelligence community was a wholly owned enterprise that favored the left. I mean, this is also the time where, the Stop Asian Hate movement was happening, which to me looked like an intelligence operation, downstream of China to make people just not even bring up, their obvious suspicions that COVID came from China. And it just shows you like they're not willing, at least at that period of time, up until today. Hopefully, it's changed whole cloth. I'm not sure we're all the way there yet, but to do anything that poked the bear of China, because they knew at the end of the day that narrative hurt the elites in this country, and it hurt the chances of President Biden being reelected. Obviously, President Trump really ushered to the national stage the kind of rebranding and reframing the U.S. relationship towards China. That's kind of one of his major foreign policy things. Obama, claimed to have that pivot to Asia where they never actually pivoted. Trump was serious about it. And so making the threat that Trump was concerned about more serious would have hurt Biden and helped Trump. And that's the lens through which the intelligence community and others viewed basically the disclosure of any of this information. And it's the same kind of story with the Hunter Biden laptop. The FBI knew it was real and didn't say anything about it because they wanted Biden to win the election. Put this kind of pattern of election fraud in the same bucket as that. It's not the weaponized government doesn't only act through, overt actions. Sometimes it's what they do by omission. I mean, that's the story of them letting the Biden family get away with, rampant international pay to play for decades, even though the evidence was in front of them. Sometimes their omissions are just as dangerous as their actions.
Mike, let's reiterate for the audience what needs to happen next, because, you said in our article 2 days ago, you said this is the Federal Bureau of Investigation, something that we need to remember. I know Kash Patel wants people to remember. They should be investigating and getting this ready for prosecution. So what exactly do you want to see happen next?
Yeah, well, this will be the basis of kind of what the Oversight Project does to throw the ball back in their court a little bit. Particularly as it relates to the lying that happened to Congress, which we're zeroing in on, which could implicate Christopher Wray and others. And so we basically want to make the point loudly that it's not sufficient just to disclose things in the name of transparency. That's great. We love transparency. That's why we have an oversight project. But we need the guys with the guns and badges who we vest with the authority to investigate these things and give them awesome super tools and to go out and do it in guns and badges to actually wrap these people up. And I think that's why a lot of people out there were really concerned when the director and deputy started making cites to the statute of limitations being a reason they couldn't go after some things, or various other we'll call them excuses to not prosecute or investigate things. And we basically want to keep these things alive, because at the end of the day, this only matters if we get accountability. Knowing about it's all cool and well and fun, but we need to see people actually held accountable for those things. And that's kind of what we want to see the FBI do. Chuck Grassley over in the Senate doesn't have a badge, doesn't have a gun. He's not going to be able to put these people in jail and solve for these crimes. He can talk about it. He could potentially write a legislative bill about it. But we need the FBI to do the people's business of investigating, and then DOJ to do the prosecuting.
Over at the Oversight Project, you have a great team of people, and you guys are working on so many different things and uncovering so much. So yesterday we had Joe Hanneman on the show. He had some articles out there about the alleged Minnesota assassin. So how did the Oversight Project track down the suspect's phone location over all throughout the world, right? It was in Dubai and India and just all over the world. How did you guys figure this part out?
Yeah, our sources and methods, if you will. Well, I'll tell you, commercially available cell phone data is there on the market. You can go out and purchase it. It's how businesses basically do digital marketing. We have long made use of cell phone data. The process is rather simple, actually. If you know the location of the person's house, you do what's called a geofence. You draw a digital circle around it and then pick up electronic devices that were pinging in that area, and then you follow them and see where they went. Now, recall we did this for illegal aliens a few years ago, where we tracked where they went when they crossed the border. We did it for the first Trump assassination attempt with crooks and that very bizarre ping from his house that also pinged near an FBI field office in Washington, D.C. So we did the same thing for this Minnesota shooter. And what we saw in the data that we put out was, some weird international connections. This is a well-traveled man. That was already kind of in the record. And we put it out, and this is a really interesting way to go about it. We're kind of trying to democratize the investigative process and to crowdsource it. We have a great team, but at the end of the day, where resources and time and bandwidth are limited, and there's no reason why this shouldn't be out there for our other friends and internet sleuths to kind of look at and run against other leads that they may have. And so we dump the data out there, and while we're still conducting the analysis with everyone else who's kind of piled on to see if they can pick up any interesting patterns.
Mike, you also released, your organization released recently some information on Joe Biden's aggressive pronoun policy. So it'd be great if you could share with our audience how their tax dollars, all of our tax dollars, are being used for gender inclusive communication.
Oh boy. So the Biden years were very impressive, if you want to use the word, for the bureaucratic muscle they put into inventing a sophisticated architecture, agency by agency, everywhere, for basically implementing transgenderism into the federal government. And so every department and agency, we've come across over the last couple of years basically has a process for exactly how to deal with these things, including speech codes, resources for people who want to transgender, ways to basically punish people who, may raise an eyebrow at the whole concept. And so most recently, we put out something from the Department of Agriculture, which basically had their pronoun guide, which is the rules you had to obey by if you didn't want to get punished. How to use pronouns, how to introduce yourself on a Zoom, like how you can refer to people, and all these just ludicrous terms that looks like they kind of just were, downloaded from the Human Rights Campaign and put into the federal government bureaucracy. But this kind of growing architecture really conquered the entire Biden administration. And when we kind of look at how the right governs versus how the left governs, you don't see that level of sophistication on the right because we don't control the bureaucracy. They're 95% left leaning. We get in there and we try to get rid of things. When they're in there, they build things and they make it penetrate every last layer of government. And that's what they did for transgenderism. Ultimately, they want to recruit more transgenders is what these policies look like to me, and trying to encourage employees to get on gender bending hormones or what have you, and then punish anybody who might speak out, because that's an ideological signifier. They don't want any conservatives or, common sense Americans in the government. And so if you express, qualms with transgenderism, they want you out, and they use that as an excuse to do it.